Hey, this is so easy. We are supposed to write the converse of the given statement. Now, when we look at this statement very clearly, one thing we understand that it's already in the conditional form. It is in the if-then format, isn't it? Very simple. So when it is in the if-then format, it makes our job very easy to write the converse. Because when we talk about a converse, what is converse of a given statement? It's very simple. We have to just swap the places of the antecedent and the consequent. That's it. Right? So from the given statement, consequent will go to antecedent's place and antecedent will become the consequent. That's it. It's so simple. Now we know when you have to write this statement, the converse, so we have to write the antecedent here. What is antecedent here? Whatever was the consequent here. What is the consequent in the given statement? Whatever follows then. What is that? The figure is a triangle. So that is what you're supposed to write here. Your statement starts with that. That will become the antecedent now. That means we will say if the figure is a triangle. So you wrote it. Whatever was the consequent there became the antecedent here. We swapped that. Similarly, now you know. So we took the consequent, we wrote it here as the antecedent. Now whatever is the antecedent there will become the consequent here. Easy. So what is there? What is the antecedent there? Whatever is between if and then. What is that? The sum of the measures of angles in a figure is 180 degree. That means we say if the figure is a triangle, then the sum of the measures of its angle is 180 degree. That is what we write. Then the sum of the measures of its angles is 180 degree. Wasn't that easy? So we know when we write a converse, it's very simple. Just swap the places of the antecedent and the consequent and we get it. But be careful, just don't write the same, literally pick up the sentence and write it. Make some grammatical changes as it is required. We know English, right? Very easy, right? Now let's see the next statement. Let's see that. It says that if the sum of the measures of two angles is 90 degree, then they are complement of each other. Again, we are going to write the converse. We know the process. The process is so simple. Antecedent and the consequent, we have to just swap their places. Beautiful. So in the given statement, first check what is the consequent. Whatever follows in. So what is that? They are complement of each other. Now just don't write here if they are complement of each other. You will say, no, you told. Write the consequent there as antecedent. No, but be careful. Use some presence of mind. When we say they, what is that? They refers to the two angles there. So how do we write? If two angles are complement of each other. So be careful. We wrote that. Then what happens? Then whatever is the antecedent there becomes a consequent here. So that is between if and then. What is that? The sum of the measures of two angles is 90 degree. So we can write here then the sum of two angles. Rather than writing two angles is already written. So we can just write then their sum is 90 degree. There means we are talking about two angles. It's so simple. So very easy, isn't it? Very simple process, right? Beautiful. Let's see the next one. If the corresponding angles formed by a transversal of two lines are congruent, then the two lines are parallel. Let's understand this. Again, we are going to write the converse. We know when we write the converse, what is that? It's so simple, right? We have to write the antecedent as a consequent and consequent becomes the antecedent. That means we are swapping their places. Beautiful. So pick up whatever comes after then, because that is nothing but the consequent and that is going to become the antecedent here. So what is that? The two lines are parallel. So we write here if two lines are parallel. Then what happens? Then we write after then the antecedent from there. What is that? Yes, then the corresponding angles formed by a transversal of two lines are congruent. It's so simple. Then the corresponding angles formed by a transversal are congruent because of two lines we have already written. So need not repeat it again. Was that easy? It's so simple, right? Let's see the next one. It is going to be very easy. It says that if the sum of the digits of a number is divisible by 3, then the number is divisible by 3. Now that's so simple. We have to write the converse. That means we know we need to swap the places of antecedent and consequent. So in the given statement, what's the consequent? Whatever follows then. What is that? The number is divisible by 3. So we write there, if the number is divisible by 3, then what happens? Then what is given there? That antecedent becomes a consequent. Then we can say that the sum of the digits of a number is divisible by 3. So we need not write the number again. So what do we write? We write the sum of its digit is also divisible by 3. See there. If the number is divisible by 3, then the sum of its digit is divisible by 3. Was that easy? It's so simple. Let's do this very simple one. It's a very easy one. What are we supposed to do? We are supposed to write the converse of the given statement. Now, when we look at this statement, alternate angles formed by two parallel lines and their transversal are congruent. Okay. When you look at this statement, first of all, tell me this statement, is it in the conditional form? No. If we write it in the conditional form, writing the converse becomes very easy. Because we know what is the converse. We just need to swap the places of the antecedent and the consequent and we get the converse. But grammatically, we need to check it correctly. Our English has to be good and we know it is, right? Let's understand now. So first let's write this statement in the conditional form, that is in the if-then form. That makes our job very easy. So that's very simple. When you look at this statement, it says that alternate angles formed by two parallel lines. So what is given to us is two parallel lines. So if two parallel lines are given to us, that means what do we write? If two lines are parallel, then what happens is then the result is alternate angles formed by the transversal, they are congruent. So let's write it. So what do we write here? Then the alternate angles formed by their transversal are congruent. So it's easy. It's correct. We have written. Okay. So now we have the antecedent and the consequent. So that's the antecedent, that's the consequent. We need to write the converse of the statement. That means we need to swap the places of the antecedent and the consequent. So now this consequent comes here as the antecedent and this antecedent becomes a consequent. So we are going to write the antecedent first. So focus here. Whatever is followed by then, we need to write that as the antecedent here. So what do we write? If, same to same. If the alternate angles formed by their transversal. Alternate angles formed by what? You can't write there because what is there? Here it was referring to the parallel lines here. So accordingly we need to write here. So what do we write here? Alternate angles formed by a transversal. Which transversal? Transversal of two lines are congruent. If the alternate angles formed by a transversal of two lines are congruent, then the lines are parallel. Then we can say yes, then the lines are parallel. That's the statement which we wrote. Wasn't that easy? Very easy, right? So we have written the converse of the given statement. Very simple. Let's go on to the next one. Let's see the next one. When you look at this statement, you see if and then. You're very excited because we know it is already in the conditional form. So we can easily identify the antecedent and the consequent, and we can write the converse because we have to just swap the places of the antecedent and the consequent. Let's do that. It's very simple. It says, let's read the statement once. It says, if a pair of interior angles made by a transversal of two lines are supplementary, then the lines are parallel. So we are going to focus on the consequent because that becomes antecedent here. So the consequent is lines are parallel. How many lines? Two lines. So we write here, if two lines are parallel, then what happens? Then we are going to write the antecedent. What is that? Then a pair of interior angles. Then a pair of interior angles made by a transversal of two parallel lines are supplementary. So we write that. Then a pair of interior angles made by their transversal, we can write there because we are talking about those two lines. So we can have made by their transversal are supplementary. So we got the converse statement of the given statement. Was that easy? Very easy. We wrote that. Beautiful. Let's see another one. This is going to be very interesting. Diagonals of a rectangle are congruent. That's a given statement. Is it in the conditional form? No. Can we write it in the conditional form? Yes. So we write it in the if-then form. What is that? What is given to us? We are talking about a rectangle. What is rectangle? It's a quadrilateral. So we can write if a quadrilateral is a rectangle. What happens? It says the result is the diagonals are congruent. So we write then the diagonals are congruent. Right? And that's our if-then form statement. That means a conditional statement. So the question is not done. You have to answer it because we have to write the converse. Means we have to swap the places of the antecedent and the consequent. Antecedent and the consequent. We need to swap the places. Let's do that. It's going to be very exciting. A quadrilateral is a rectangle, then its diagonals are congruent. So we are going to write the converse, right? We are going to focus on the consequent because that becomes antecedent here. So what is the consequent? Diagonals are congruent. Its diagonals, right? So we write here, if the diagonals of what? So we write there, if the diagonals of a quadrilateral are congruent, then what happens? Then the quadrilateral is a rectangle. Then we can say, then it is a rectangle, or we write then the quadrilateral is a rectangle. So you said it's so simple. We got the converse statement. Beautiful. But observe this. What we learned here is, if there is a rectangle, then its diagonals are always congruent. That is what the statement said. But if you focus on this statement and think about it geometrically, logically, we think always, what it says is, we are saying here, if the diagonals of a quadrilateral are congruent, that means we have two. In a quadrilateral, there are two diagonals. We are saying that if the diagonals are congruent, then the quadrilateral is a rectangle. Not necessarily. If the diagonals are congruent, yes, the quadrilateral can be a rectangle. But if the diagonals are congruent, the same quadrilateral can be a square also. One more, if the diagonals are congruent, then the same quadrilateral can be an isosceles trapezium also. Remember that, because this is applicable in all. Diagonals are congruent in a square also, and it is also congruent in an isosceles trapezium also. So when diagonals are congruent, you cannot say that it is always going to be a rectangle, because it can be an isosceles trapezium, it can be a square. That means this converse of the given statement is not true. We can write the converse of a statement. But as we learned earlier, remember, if a statement is true, that doesn't mean that its converse statement has to be always true. So here you can see the converse statement of this given statement is not true. Exciting, right? Interesting.
And yes, please do not forget to like, share, subscribe, and press the bell icon.